All right, what's up, everybody? I'm your host, Tony Calgene, and this is the Stay in the Fight podcast, reporting live from my sister's living room. So if there's any stray cats or girlfriends in the background, please just look away. Today, I got my guy, Matt Giampa. Coach Giampa is the special teams coordinator, running backs coach, recruiting coordinator
Yes, sir.
at Alvernia University, correct? Over there
Yeah.
in Reading. Awesome.
Yep.
Happy to have him on today. So, Coach Giampa, tell me a little bit about, your beginnings. I know that you played at Perkman Valley in Collegeville, Pennsylvania. You went on to be a student manager, student assistant at Temple. When did you know you wanted to get into football? When did you know you wanted to be a football coach?
I think the first time I knew was probably middle school area. Um, Instead of doodling on my papers, I would draw plays, which looking back, they all ended up being mesh. So it was pretty much the same play over and over. Um, Football was just kind of my thing that I watched pretty much all day, every day. I was going back and forth between two houses, so it was kind of the only thing I had.
Mm.
Um, I would do things like just memorize the first two rounds of the draft, stuff like that. And then I think about eighth grade, a gym teacher noticed that stuff and asked if I ever thought about coaching. I hadn't really thought about it. I just thought football was just like something you either play or you
Mm-hmm.
don't. So I think right around there was where I sort of figured it out. Then I got to high school, and like you said, I played at Perkman Valley. Played is a stretch. I was a below average player, but we were a decent team. So people carried me to kind of wins. But then after high school, nobody's really recruiting 5'6", like 250-pound offensive linemen. So that was sort of when I figured out that like coaching's the way to go if I want to stay in football.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, how did you end up at Temple? I know that you went to Penn State originally.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was at Penn State for a year. Wasn't really about it. So I transferred to Temple where, most of my friends had went and it was close enough to home. And sort of the way it happened was I didn't know how any of this stuff worked. I didn't know how you got jobs like in football, anything like that. So I just walked over to the facility on day one and just knocked on the door, which I guess you're not supposed to do at Temple just because of where the facility's at. It's not in a great spot.
Yeah.
Um, but once I went there, they took me in. I just kind of asked, like, I want to get into coaching. Is there anything I can do? So they gave me an ops job and a coaching job, which basically the coaching job was like hold bags
Mm-hmm.
during practice. But I got to sit in on meetings and things like that and travel to a couple games. So it worked out. I mean, I did that for 2.5 years of my college career up until I ended up going to you guys over at Ursinus. So it was
Mm-hmm.
good. It was good. I got to experience big time ball. Coach Rule was nice to me. The whole staff was good to me. I have no complaints about that time.
That's awesome. Were you being making any money at the time? Being paid?
No, no, it was completely unpaid. I had two other jobs, so I could still do it because I had to pay. So I was paying my student loans. I was paying the interest off as I went through school. So I had a job as a ticket booth guy for Temple basketball games, and then I worked for the Sixers in like a fan services department. So basically, the guy who sits at the desk and people come up and complain to him about, whatever. And that was during when they were tanking, so it was really bad.
No doubt. All right. So tell me a little bit about your first steps, getting into more of like your coaching side, your coaching career. Tell us a little bit about what led you to Ursinus, what led you to reaching out to us.
Yeah. So for Temple, for my sports management degree, they make you get a junior internship and a senior internship. Um, my internship junior year, I just used my Temple football job as the internship, but they wouldn't let me do that a second time. So I had to go out and find things that were in coaching since I knew what I wanted to do.
Mm.
But as you're aware, when you first get into coaching, there's no paid gigs. There's no, you're not making much money. So I was trying to look for stuff close to home so I could either live at home or live in my school apartment. And I just blasted a bunch of emails out to every school within an hour of my house. And luckily, Ursinus, which was right up the street, Coach Eachis got back to me about doing my senior internship as a coaching and an ops guy. So it just kind of worked out that like I needed to find something close to home, and the school that was literally the closest to my house wanted help with ops stuff
Yeah.
and a little bit of coaching here and there. So it worked out pretty good.
No, absolutely. I mean, it was definitely a huge help having you, on the staff. And for you guys that, are looking for a way to, make a need for yourself. Coach Giampa came in, he started organizing the recruiting areas. He was sitting in on meetings, trying to learn as much as possible. And then we even asked him to get his, like, it's not technically a pilot license, but his drone license, so he could fly our drone and film practice. So, by any means, he was willing to do what he had to do.
By any means, man. I mean, those meetings were some of the longest meetings of my life, but I mean, it worked out pretty good. I learned a lot. And that drone license actually got me my next job after that. So
Absolutely. So tell us about that.
you never know what's going to happen, man. Because after Sinus, I was, looking for other stuff, trying to find paid stuff. Still couldn't really find it. It was looking for my first job out of college, technically. Villanova posted something that they needed, a quality control guy / film guy, which, most people in football will tell you like the film job is the worst job you could possibly have, just because of everything that you're asked to do. But it was a way to move up the ladder to what I eventually want to do. So I hit them up. They were pumped about the drone license deal because they had just bought drones for no reason and just had them sitting around and needed to do something with them. So that was sort of how I got that gig. I got in there as a film guy to start for the first month. And then after that first month, I just went to the head guy and I was like, hey, I really want to do coaching in the future. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to make sure. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. We can move you into more of like an assistant, a defensive quality control role, and special teams assistant. So that's what I did for the year. I broke down all the film for the special teams coordinator. I helped the D line with their drills for the season. I cut up all his stuff, did that. I was an unpaid GA pretty much. I was doing GA work is the best I can describe it.
Yeah, absolutely. That was, obviously it's not ideal, but it's nice to get Villanova on your resume. And I remember reaching out to you, like as our special teams coordinator, like, hey, like, what are you guys running? And being able to bounce ideas off that, like, 6-8 months ago, like you didn't know anything about special teams.
No,
so
I had no idea.
So now you're working what, like 4 years in a row, volunteer, unpaid. Like, how are you surviving? Where are you living? What are you eating? Tell us about that.
Lucky for me, like the temple gig was in college, so I was pretty used to eating cheap food and just struggling to survive to begin with. Ursinus was close to my house, so I saved rent payment there. And then Villanova was where it sort of like, hit me that, oh crap, I have $0. I got to figure out what to do here.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing is obviously trying to find food. And at Temple, it was, I worked the 2 jobs to make sure I could still do the football stuff. And at that big level, you get the free food from the training table. So basically I was just filling up Tupperwares and bringing it back to my apartment, surviving that way, because I had no money to buy food and I didn't have a meal plan. Ursinus was it was funny. I actually knew somebody who worked in the kitchen as like a dishwasher sort of deal. So a couple days a week, I could go up there and he would basically just like throw me a sandwich or something like that. So I could eat, which was nice. He's still over there. And then Nova, I worked at a bar 3 nights a week, till about 3 a.m. as a bouncer. I know an intimidating 5'6", so I did that a few nights a week. I slept in my car when I would work. So because I wouldn't drive home, I just drove back to the office and just slept in my car 3 nights a week.
Mhm.
Crashed on people's couches who lived around other coaches' couches a little bit. I was there. Once a week I would drive a little over an hour home just so I could get new clothes and stuff. And while I was there, the other coaches were nice enough to let me use their meal swipes because I was still unpaid. They threw me some gear, but I had no money, so
Mhm.
threw me some meal swipes. So that's pretty much like how I survived the first 4 years. It was just other people being generous with what they were giving me, trying to stay as close to home as possible so I could at least save some money, and then just working. I hate to use the word grinding, but I mean, it was like I worked 3 jobs at one time, and then I was working in a bar till 3 in the morning, and then having to set up the special teams meeting at 6 a.m. So, I mean, it was a grind.
No, absolutely, man. And I think you hit on a really important thing about, the coaching community and just things that coaches should do is, we all have our story that, that's the point of this podcast. But when you finally make it and you finally have some money, you got to pay it forward because you got some young guys under you that like, you may not know what they're going through or how they're making that job work. But there's a lot of postings on the football scoop for, $1,000 a month, and you can't live on that. So if you're in a position to be able to take care of a young coach, you definitely should. So tell us a little bit about your first break, your first job making some actual cash over there at Alvernia.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about 1,000 a month because that was the first break I got. Alvernia had it posted a $12,000 job to the scoop, like you were talking about, and it so coincided that was when my student loans kicked in.
Mm.
Was basically like right when I would have started, so I needed to find some kind of paying job to start paying those off. So I applied on the scoop for a defensive assistant job. Uh, got an interview. When I got there, they said it was actually for an offensive assistant job. I had never done anything on offense. I was defense at Ursinus. I was defense at Temple. I was defense at Nova. So I didn't know anything about offense. But I went in there and just, they said, just teach us what you know the best. So I basically gave a special teams presentation and just
Mm-hmm.
talked about like my goals and all that sort of stuff. Um, Ended up getting the job. Um, the cool thing about it to me was Ursinus was sort of an established Division III program. Had history, had success. Alvernia it was first year. So they had no football before that. They had no alumni. They had nothing. The school was still adjusting to it. So basically, we went in and just recruited for year one and hit the ground running after that. Um, and that was sort of my first break. I was able to get a discount on my master's classes at Alvernia, so that was a good trade-off for being low paid. So I have my master's now, and sort of after 2 years of working there on that salary, I got bumped up to full time with benefits. So now I'm a little more stable. I feel like I feel a good sense of accomplishment about it because like at least I have a job. It might not
Mm-hmm.
be the level I want to be at right now, but I feel like I'm trending in the right direction. And it's just good to have good people around me who I can kind of talk to about everything. So I feel pretty good about my break.
And with that full time job, you became a special teams coordinator, correct?
Yeah, special
So,
teams guy. I've coached running backs, tight ends. I'm actually next season I'm gonna be doing the offensive line. Um, so I'm getting all the experience I can handle. So it's working out good.
that's awesome, man. Definitely happy for you, especially as that young student. I couldn't imagine myself being a college student and grinding the way you did and sacrificing that college life that so many kids, guys on football scholarship will walk away from, the football field for that college life. But just sacrificing that and now, turning that into a full-time job. Question that I've got to ask everybody, could you do it all over again?
I could. Wanting to is a whole different thing.
Uh,
It's a cliche thing, but it's that thing everybody says, oh, if I knew then what I know now,
Mm-hmm.
all these sort of things. Because, I started at a big time school and I didn't really understand the sort of networking aspect of our profession or any profession for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
So if I could go back and do it again, yeah, I could do it again and be unpaid and do all that stuff. I find a way to do it. It probably helped me lose some weight, but I would just go about it a little differently of how I, interacted with people and, all those sort of things, who I chose to learn from, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Like they say, hindsight is 2020, man. I'm
Always.
definitely somebody that, I have a pretty honestly like solid, good football coaching network, and I graduated with one. But I was just kind of, I can't say I was super close to my college coaches. Um, so I didn't want to ask them for help. I wanted to be the guy who made it on their own. Like I know a bunch of my teammates, went on to get college jobs right out of graduation and stuff. But I wasn't going to do that, and it probably took me 6 years, 7 years to realize like I need to have relationships with these guys. They were good guys. They helped me go from a boy to a man. And if I want to succeed in this business, you have to have those relationships. So I was hard headed for a very, very long time. And it took me a long time to realize that, okay, I have to network and I have to be willing to ask people for help. I think that's probably one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
So looking to the future, kind of tell me, what's your dream job? And then, how are you going to get there? What's your next step from where you are now?
Well, I grew up in the Philly suburbs, so I've been a Birds fan my whole life. So the dream job is head coach or GM of the Philadelphia Eagles. Like that's always been the job.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, whether it ever happens, who knows? I hope they stay successful so they don't need a new head coach anytime soon. But for me, I want to be able to coach at the highest level. So it's either the NFL or D1. Like those are the two jobs I want to have. There's nothing wrong with coaching at D3. Um, there's just aspects of it where it's just hard to be able to coach football with so many other responsibilities that we have. With the academics, we do community service. You're much more invested in every aspect of the college process than you would be at the higher level. So that's kind of what I want to get to, so I can sort of just focus recruiting and coaching, or just coaching, that sort of deal. Um, as far as the next step, I just hope to move up the ladder a little bit. Whether it's a D2 job, a D1 job, if I got to go back to unpaid, I saved some money so I could do it. Just because I knew that might be a possibility. Just talking to you, talking to some other people. So really, the next step would be just hope I bump up one rung on the ladder, just keep climbing to eventually reach the main goal.
Yeah, I hear that, man. That's awesome. So you're definitely someone that there's another Giampa out there wondering whether he should get into football coaching, and you've done a great job of establishing yourself, and now getting to a point where you can make the leap. You know what I mean? Because you put in the time, you've saved up some money, and yeah, man, I'm excited for you. Any advice for that young Giampa who might be a student assistant? Maybe he didn't even play football in high school or something like that. But just starting out in this profession with, not a lot of knowledge, what would you tell them?
There's a couple of things. The biggest one probably for guys who are just getting in, and it's my route where it's an intern spot and you're not really sure what your job is, anything like that. Just try to get in as many meetings as you can. Go to clinics, network with people, just be around other football people. So you learn the game first and foremost, because your knowledge is going to take you way farther than anything else. And then so you're meeting and interacting with other coaches or scouts or whatever it is you want to do in football. Um, because for me, that was the best part of the Temple job to get started, was just sitting in the meetings, seeing football vernacular, seeing how they watch film, seeing what sort of things they look for. Because, you think you know a ton of football because you like it and you watch it on Sundays and Saturdays. and then you get to an actual football team meeting and you're just like, I didn't know anything. So it's kind of a culture shock there. And the other thing is, whenever you do get a job, I mean, it's just try to be the best at whatever job it is. It sounds cliche, but the better you are at what you do, the more people end up noticing. Um, that's just the way I feel about it, and hopefully people are noticing. I would hope so. And then the last thing is just be patient. I'm 28. I was unpaid for 4 years. I'm just starting to make some money in this. Uh, if you can survive the first few years, live well below your means, try to be a little frugal here and there, and you make it through that first spot, and you're doing the things we talk about, by networking, learning the game, making sure that if level that the kids experience, that your coaching is a good one and you're helping them get to be better people, it's going to work out. It's just, we've all had the times where we feel down about it. But eventually everything comes together, I think.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. I couldn't have said it better myself. But I appreciate you coming on today, and we are signing off. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.